In the face of persistently high inflation, the European Central Bank has hiked interest rates to 4.5%, the highest in 2 decades.
Libyans plead for help from the international community after the deadly and devastating floods.
Freedom for sex workers, jail for punters and pimps. European Parliament adopts report on common approach to prostitution.
Keeping their education on track, pupils in Kharkiv go back to school in the city's metro stations, just 25 kilometers from the front. The ECB raises interest rates again by 1/4 of a point to 4.5%, the highest in 2 decades. The measure, in the midst of economic stagnation, should curb inflation in the euro area. In addition, the ECB has lowered its growth forecasts in the Eurozone for the years 2023 to 2025.
Inflation continues to decline, but is still expected to remain too high for too long. We are determined to ensure that inflation returns to our 2% medium-term target in a timely manner. In order to reinforce progress towards our target, the Governing Council today decided to raise the 3 key ECB interest rates by 25 basis points.
This is the 10th consecutive increase in the cost of borrowing, despite signs of wear and tear in the economy. The European Commission predicts average Eurozone GDP growth of 0.8% this year, with forecasts ranging from 2.2% for Spain to minus 0.4% for Germany. They predict inflation won't fall to 2.1% until 2025, with Commission President Ursula von der Leyen identifying persistent high inflation as a great economic challenge for the bloc.
Search teams combed streets, wrecked buildings and even the sea to look for bodies in the coastal Libyan city of Derna. It's where the weekend's storm caused the collapse of 2 dams, unleashing a massive flash flood that's killed over 5,000 people. Residents who've survived are overwhelmed by the enormity of the disaster. Bodies, they say, are everywhere, inside houses, in streets, at sea. Many are pleading for international help.
هذه مدينة بحالها أبيدت كامل ما زالت تحت الأنقاض وفي اللي في البحر وفي اللي هم جابوه وقعدوا يدفنوا فيهم لدرجة جماعي حتى المقابر ما شالناهمش وما زلت نقول لك يا أجنبي والله يا أوروبي أنا سعادتك تعال لي ما فيش داعي نقول لك أنت تحق فيا.
International help is on the way. Jordan has already dispatched a military cargo plane loaded with relief aid. They're just one of several foreign governments offering help. France and Italy are leading the European effort, and Turkey is sending equipment. The storm hit other areas in eastern Libya too, including the towns of Beda and Susa, where a vital medical centre was flooded and hundreds of families were displaced. The United Nations has pledged $10 million to help support Libya's traumatised survivors.
Bulgaria's parliament has voted to lift its embargo on Ukrainian grain imports from Friday. It was one of 5 EU member states allowed to ban imports from Ukraine to protect its own farmers and markets from competition. Bulgaria's politicians voted in solidarity with Ukraine and to guarantee global food security. Brussels must rule on a possible extension of the ban in Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and Romania. The Polish government has already warned it will extend the Ukraine grain import ban regardless of what's decided by the EU. With Hungary and Slovakia apparently prepared to follow suit, while Romania has declared it will back any decision made in Brussels. Bulgaria's Agriculture Minister Kirill Vatov, who'd previously supported the ban, said he now believed it could be lifted without serious consequences for the country's economy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Bulgaria's vote as an example of true solidarity. Below ground, 25 kilometers from the border with Russia, Ukrainian children in Kharkiv are starting a new school year in a classroom. It's the second largest city in Ukraine, using space in its metro stations to provide its young people with an education in a protected space.
Ну, після 2 років онлайн навчання це дуже гарно, коли приходиш і бачиш очі та чуєш не через динаміку, а через уші та, в принципі, так легше навчатися.
The underground school caters for 400 students. The ones in the 11th grade are here preparing for a multi-subject university entrance test.
Батьки задоволені, що діти мають змогу офлайн вивчати основні предмети, готуватися до мультипредметного тесту. Для батьків це важливо і для дітей, бо комунікація в наші часи, от в такій ситуації, вона дуже важлива. Для дітей соціалізація необхідна, бо за час ковідний і за час війни діти дуже відвикли працювати отак у групі, в команді.
Many schools in Ukraine have been bombed by Russia. In Kharkiv, there are just over 120 remaining in good condition. But due to constant bombing in the region, the city decided to play it safe and installed dozens of classrooms in at least 5 metro stations, allowing the children to return to school, even in times of war.
It's back to the drawing board for the EU's top diplomat Joseph Borrell after another attempt to normalise relations between Serbia and Kosovo failed on Thursday. While Pristina and Belgrade say they both want to join the EU, Serbia and its former province of Kosovo are still at odds. Kosovo unilaterally declared independence in 1998, a move Belgrade still refuses to recognise. But Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti says he won't work towards an agreement struck in February until Serbia recognises its country's independence.
Some steps were taken by Kosovo, and we welcome them. Some, but they failed. They fell very short of meeting the request made for a full escalation. Today, we again urge both parties to take immediate action in the north of Kosovo to de-escalate the situation, to avoid any further destabilization, and to enable new early local elections to take place immediately.
Tensions have been running high between the two sides since the ethnic Serb population in northern Kosovo boycotted municipal elections in April. But if talks continue to fail, Borrell has warned that Serbia and Kosovo are heading towards a dead end and could sabotage their hopes of joining the bloc.
A report calling for common guidelines on prostitution for all member states has been approved at the European Parliament's plenary in Strasbourg. The report will now go to the European Commission, which will draft a legislative proposal. It includes decriminalisation of the sellers, but the prosecution of clients and pimps.
Prostitution is not a way of work, sex work. Prostitution is a kind of violence against women. We have to reduce the demand. To reduce the demand means we have to make clear it is not allowed to buy a woman, a body of a woman. I think it's clear for all things they are not allowed. The first times are fees and the second times are prison.
The report's authors argue that it will help tackle cross-border implications of prostitution, including human trafficking for sexual exploitation. Former sex workers told Euronews what changes they expect from the new legislation.
Y sobre todo lo que está en juego es la dignidad de Europa, porque creo que tenemos que ser reflejo de un modelo de progreso y de avances, y sobre todo creo que lo que nos estamos jugando es un modelo de igualdad, ¿no? Un modelo de igualdad y de respeto y de buen trato entre mujeres y hombres, que es a lo que aspiramos realmente.
No woman wants to sell her body and her orifices to men just because she likes it. So we have to end the demand, help the women, decriminalize the women, because right at the moment in legalization in Germany, the only who has to fear punishment from the state or fees are the women.
But the European Coalition of Sex Workers' Rights and Inclusion criticized the report as biased. The NGO argues that it ignores the body of evidence of negative impact of criminalizing the clientele of sex workers, leading to higher clandestine activity and more violence. The co-chair of the Greens in the European Parliament agrees.
What we want is to have legislative steps, like, for example, a revision of the Victims' Rights Directive, so that we can better protect those people that are affected by sexual exploitation, while not generalizing that all forms of sex work are gender-based violence.
Several UN agencies, namely WHO and UNFPA, and human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch also oppose criminalizing the purchase of sex. Last month, the European Court of Human Rights agreed to hear a case brought by sex workers challenging a French law passed with that purpose in 2016.
Female footballers in Spain's top tier have ended their strike after disputes over pay conditions were resolved. The strike halted La Liga F's first round of matches last weekend. The players' union FootPro detailed that the new wage agreements mean players are guaranteed a minimum salary of €21,000 for the 2023-24 season. The players' strike coincided with the scandal of former President Luis Rubiales forcing a kiss on player Jenny Hermosa after La Roja's World Cup triumph. The heads of some of the world's biggest tech companies, including X, Meta, Microsoft and OpenAI, gathered on Wednesday to discuss AI policy in Washington, D.C. Tesla CEO and owner of X, Elon Musk, called for a referee-styled approach to regulating artificial intelligence. Lawmakers are looking for ways to mitigate dangers of the emerging technology, which has boomed in investment and consumer popularity since the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT chatbot.